Okay guys, I'm here today with Mike Perry. Mike's from Massachusetts, and Mike is one of the best physical conditioning guys in the world. He works with all the UFC guys from Massachusetts. He has worked with the Patriots team as well, so very, very knowledgeable. And today he's gonna show us here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about how to do physical conditioning using kettlebells and this and that. And when I was in New York City, for example, I have worked a lot with KP, that's my coach. And it's always good to see the different approach that people have. So for example, when I worked with KP, it was a lot about like functional training, all type of exercise. And I can see here that Mike works a lot with kettlebell. Kettlebell is one of your main things, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Mike? So that's very cool. And guys, 1 week ago or so, I posted one video about showing like the exercise that I used to do with kettlebell on my living room, right? So I want to talk about this with Mike as well, because in my opinion, kettlebell is awesome because you can work wherever you are. All you need is one kettlebell and maybe a yoga mat to put on your living room. And so what do you think about that, Mike? Like, what do you think like that makes like kettlebell so good for athletes, for fighters, and this and that?
Well, I think it's just incredibly efficient, and it doesn't require a lot of space. So once you learn the basics of kettlebell training, you can focus on so many different components of training. You can focus on, speed, strength, grip endurance, core training. You can coordinate a bunch of total body movements. So it's just really a super efficient way to train. And like anything, it takes a little bit of time to develop the skill, but once you dial it in, it's really the most versatile tool you can add to your strength and conditioning program.
I got it. And yeah, even when I made my video, I even said like, guys, don't start doing this tomorrow. Make sure like maybe you pay a private with someone, ask someone to teach you how to do the forms, because you can easily get hurt if you don't know what you're doing, right?
Yeah, well, here's the way that I look at it. I would never go online to start my jiu-jitsu training. I would never just go to YouTube to learn jiu-jitsu, and I don't think people should learn kettlebells from YouTube. Yeah, so I think it's important to find an instructor that you trust, that has knowledge, that has experience, and then get taught the right way.
I got it. But talk a little bit about like the overall training here. Like for example, let's say like I know that most of the people who watch my channel and this and that, they do jiu-jitsu for a hobby. Mm-hmm. So and many times they're like over 30, over 35 years old, over 40. And how long should be one kettlebell training, for example?
It really depends on what your goals are, but you can get a lot of work done in 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, that's it's very efficient, and it's easy on the body. What you can do is you can manipulate the load and you can challenge your stuff. So it requires a lot of stability, a lot of core strength, but it's really easy on the joints, and especially with combat athletes. I mean, it's really about staying on the mats as long as possible and having longevity. So it's important that your training will complement your jiu-jitsu and whatever else you do. So you want to be smart. If you're beating yourself up in the gym, how you expect to perform your best on the mats? So I really believe that kettlebell training can be a perfect complement to jiu-jitsu or any combat sport.
Yeah, I agree. It has helped me a lot. I haven't been doing kettlebell since 2010 or 2011. And as I said, I used to do on my living room, and then when I met KP, I had him as a personal trainer in New York, so it was even better, right? But when I didn't have him, I used to do at the living room of my house, and with just like one yoga mat and one kettlebell, I could really work very hard and do this. But Mike, what do you think about like maybe I show you like 3 exercises that I do, and you focus like on showing like what's the most important aspects, and if we just said here that nobody should watch the YouTube videos and try to learn it, but you can have some idea, and then you can go to one person who is specialist and ask this person to teach you, and then you are able to start doing. So
perfect. Well, why don't you pick a movement that you like to do, something that you do on your own, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see if there's ways that we can improve it, make it more efficient, or maybe we don't need to change anything at all.
There you go. So one of the exercises that I love doing is the swing. That's the most basic one, and I love basics, right? Even in jiu-jitsu, I love the basic moves. And I think the swing, I see my entire body working, so I'm gonna show you how I do it, and maybe you fix me, and also like give a view for who's just starting to do, what's important to focus. But there you go.
Perfect.
I'm gonna grab the kettlebell, I'm gonna open my legs, bend a little bit.
Not too bad at all. Very good. So he actually had a really good start position. One of the things that you couldn't see is his spine, but whenever you're doing a kettlebell swing, it's important to maintain that neutral spine position. So you want a hip hinge, you want to, shoot the hips back, but when your hips go backwards, your back should stay nice and flat. One of the worst things you can do is swing that kettlebell and go into a flex position and then come up to the top and overextend. So that's
how I used to do in the beginning.
That's not good. And then another thing that you can really just try to focus on is making sure that at the top of the swing, you're letting that kettlebell float a little bit. So you're gonna snap those hips and almost relax your arms a little bit, because the beauty of the swing is you can balance tension and relaxation. So at the very, very bottom, you're gonna load everything up, you're gonna be tense, you can pop the hips, and at the very, very top position, that kettlebell becomes a little bit more weightless, and that almost acts as a rest for you.
So I kind of like...
So you're just gonna let it float a little bit. And I'll show you a quick little example. So at the very, very top position, we can almost let it float a little bit. Pop. So now this is a demonstration. I don't recommend this at home, but look, I can almost let go of that kettlebell, and that's just a little bit of a demonstration on the fact that you don't have to be super tense at the top position. When the kettlebell's underneath you, you can swing it and you can have the kettlebell come out, but you don't want to be over gripping. You don't want to use too much tension, because if you do, you're inefficient and you're going to get tired.
I got it. Yeah, so the second exercise that I normally do on my sequence is first I do the swing, then I do the swing with only one hand. So it's pretty much the same thing, but only with one arm, right?
Yeah, same thing, only with one arm. And the most important thing you need to focus on with the one arm swing is making sure that you're not rotating your lower back. There can be a little bit of rotation in the upper back, but we want to make sure that as you come down, you're not rounding your low back and you're not twisting your low back. That lower back area should stay nice and square, but a little bit of rotation is okay. And a bigger guy like you that has bigger shoulders, in order to get that kettlebell underneath your legs, you are going to have to rotate a little bit, because if you tried to come straight down, you would just hit yourself in the leg. So a little bit of upper body rotation is okay on the one arm swing.
Cool. Then the third one, I do 7. Normally when I do the workout in my living room, just to keep in shape, not for tournaments, like just to keep in shape, it's 7 exercises. We have done 2. The third one that I do, I go all the way up. I forgot the name of this.
That's a snatch, kettlebell snatch.
Yeah, I'm not good with names, but...
That's okay. And a way that we can improve that a little bit is in the overhead position, we want to try to do our best to keep that elbow locked out. Now, just depending on shoulder mobility or maybe injuries or whatever, sometimes people can't lock it out, but when we get overhead, boom, we want to try to lock out in this position and stay centered. And on the way back down, absorb the swing and stay centered. So if you're like this, what can happen is it can put a lot of unnecessary stress in the elbow. And then the last thing I would say is just make sure you're not holding the kettlebell out front, because that's going to put a lot of unnecessary pressure on your shoulder. You want the kettlebell kind of stacked so your whole body is supporting the load instead of trying to fight it with your shoulder.
Guys, look, I have been doing kettlebells for over 5 years now. See how many mistakes I'm still doing, so that's why it's important to have someone overlook you, and then you do by yourself, but make sure you get someone to teach you, because you can easily get hurt if you don't know what you're doing. But anyway, so we did 3 here, then I do this one that I pass under the leg.
Yeah, a basic figure 8. And the cool thing about the figure 8 is it does force you to move your hands and stabilize kind of your lower body. So you want to make sure that when you are handing off, you get into that squat position a little bit more. So when you reach through, again, you'll notice my upper back is rotating. That's completely fine. But we don't want to lose our posture, and we don't want to go into that flex position. So you have to be able to find enough space to get through. So that's just really the important thing. So you're just protecting your lower back, because lower back injuries are not fun.
I got it. And then I do this 4, I lay down. I do what I call, but I don't know if it's the right name, the half Turkish get-up.
Let's see what you got.
I lift and I come up.
Yep.
Then I lay down, then I lift and I come up.
So there's two different variations of this, right? So with the kettlebell, it's going to be a little bit different because you're using the get up as a strength tool, a mobility tool. But in jiu-jitsu, you're really trying to be explosive with that movement, and it's just a different line. So the only thing I would say is if you really want to focus on improving that shoulder stability, when you come down, the first thing is just picking it up. You don't want to start here. This is just not a good position. Even if it's light, it's not a healthy position for your shoulder. Imagine if you tried to do this with a 70-pound kettlebell. So we want to grip, pull it in, and then as we come on up, we want to use this leg to help us drive up, and we want to stay nice and vertical in this position.
You don't even put your hand on the ground.
What's that?
The other arm, you just keep your elbow, you don't put your hand.
Yep. Well, so this is just to the elbow position. You can go up to here. It's just a different variation, but it just depends on what part of the getup you want to focus on. And you know, again, there's nuances and there's several positions you can focus on. But in general, we go to the post position, and then you can go to the hand position, and then you can come through the leg sweep and finish the movement. But with the kettlebell, you're keeping that kettlebell overhead. When you're using that sort of tactical stand-up in jiu-jitsu, it's just a little different line of force, but it's the same principles. You want to get out of that position, and you want to be powerful and strong and extend that arm.
I got it. And then, get excited here. We're supposed to do only 3, but entire sequence. Then I call the half bench press. I just do the...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's a fantastic exercise, and you know, it's a great way to develop upper body strength. The one thing I would say with any type of pressing exercise is positioning of your shoulders, right? So when you're pressing, we're gonna come on up. We wanna make sure that as the kettlebell comes down, our shoulder doesn't tip forward and we get this forward translation of that joint. That's not a good ideal positioning. So once we're here, we wanna actively pull. We wanna drive the shoulder blades back. We wanna have a nice grip, and our shoulders are back. So we don't wanna tip that shoulder forward, and then we just wanna press out. And it's really about just healthy shoulder mechanics, keeping those shoulders healthy.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing this like 3 times per week, for example, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, and also as you start to train, you know, heavier with kettlebells, I mean, we've got 60 kilo kettlebells, which is 135 pounds. You need to pay attention when you've got a heavy kettlebell.
And the last one, this one I probably am doing right. I think there's no way to do it wrong. I just put the kettlebell over my, and I just do that.
Some basic crunches, yep. And there's nothing wrong with doing some basic crunches. The big thing I would say with any type of crunching movement is just making sure you're not putting too much excessive curvature of your lumbar spine. So when you're pressing your lower back flat, that's fine. And if your upper torso is coming off of the ground, awesome. But what you don't want to do is repetitively go into that flexed lumbar spine position, because over time that can be problematic for the discs.
I got it. So guys, look, these are the 7 exercises that I used to do. I do in my living room. But I remember like when I used to do kettlebells on KP, for example, my physical conditioning coach, he would be like on my side saying exactly what Michael was saying, like, oh, fix this, fix that, fix it. So, but also learn it. Even if you do some little mistakes by yourself, it's not gonna hurt your body too much, I think. As long as you have someone like looking to you, like once in a while at least, to fix what you're doing. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, you know, I couldn't agree more.
So guys, I think it helped you. And this is Mike Perry. He is shooting one DVD all about using kettlebells for jiu-jitsu. So soon it's gonna be released. And make sure to subscribe here in the channel. I'm doing my best here to bring the best content for you guys. And thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Os.